Yeah. Hey. 3-point firefighter, always ready for more. Saving citizens and leaving egos at the door. Another day up in the life, showing you what it takes. Got the hunger, pride, drive, spirit that never breaks. Yeah. Always there when danger is threatening. When seconds count, guess what? We're counting the seconds. 3-point firefighter. 3-point firefighter. Hey, IGAF.
Is it recording? It is recording. All right, cool. So welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today's guest is a guest you've already seen here on the... fuck, I already messed that up. Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. Today's guest is somebody that's already been on once. We did not get to finish our conversation. I'm a huge fan of this guy. Today's guest is Captain Shane Farmer. Now, Shane has been with Big Sky since 2018, and before that, he started in Cedar Falls Fire Rescue. I think back it was early 2000s, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and then you were hired in 2006. That started your professional career. I don't say professional, paid career.
Yeah.
And then you're also a lead instructor at Gallatin Valley Fire Academy. And the cool thing about that is he was able to build a multi-agency academy from the ground up. That to me sounds pretty badass. He loves to train. He has a passion for the fire service that I feel like I'm always trying to catch up to. I think I have a great passion for the fire service, but I cannot sit around Shane, have a beer, and not be in awe of his love for the fire department. He's a huge advocate for health, safety, and wellness of all members of the fire service. And he also participates in the Firefighter Combat Challenge. Today's guest, Mr. Shane Farmer. Brother, how are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing, Jake?
I'm doing great, brother. Good seeing you. It's I'm thinking about you because it's cold here, and I assume it's probably cold there.
Yeah.
Actually, I talked to Matt Hopple, and he said he had like, 1.5 feet, 2 feet of snow overnight.
Yeah, so I moved out here in 2018, and that winter was a big snow year. And since then, they've been, I'd say, pretty average. I think last year was really below average, and this year is like ridiculous. I just
catching up.
Yeah, I just pulled the snow off of the roof of my garage in Big Sky, and I mean, like, it's 4 to 5 feet on my garage.
Damn.
Like, so, yeah, I mean, it's legit. Like, the skiers and snowboarders are loving it.
Oh, I bet. Yeah. Fuck that. I like snow when it lands, and then I want it to immediately go away. I don't want to drive in it. I don't want to see it. Fuck it. Yeah. I want a beach and tropical drinks, man. I don't want that stuff.
Yeah, my wife and I just got back from Mexico, so that was my welcome home is, hey, go move 4 feet of snow off your roof. Yeah.
Still hungover, like, fuck, I guess I will.
Sunburnt, and, yeah.
Funny you should bring that up because I got to meet your family, not just your wife and not just your wife and kids, but in-laws and everything. So Shane is, he participates and has been participating in the Firefighter Combat Challenge for over 20 years. And they had the World Championships, correct me if I'm wrong, in Nashville this year. Yes, so sir. I'm only a couple hours away. I wanted to go see my brother, crush it, went down there. And I was blown away with what I saw. Everybody there that has been doing it like you have, you're all like brothers and sisters. I mean, we all are in the fire service, but this seemed like, I've always said that instructors are their own little niche in the fire service. It's like great. But what I saw down there was just like that. Everybody, you guys were talking to each other. Your families were together. It was like I felt like I was sneaking in somebody's family picnic is what it seemed like.
Yeah.
And then you were introducing me to people that you've been helping. They've told me that, oh yeah, he's really helped me. And I'm like, I thought this was a competition, but everybody was rooting for everybody. Everybody's sharing what they've learned. Tell me a little bit about that world. Cause again, I got to meet your wonderful family. That's always nice. When somebody opens up their life to you like that. So I do appreciate that, brother. Yeah. But tell us a little bit about the Firefighter Combat Challenge and why it's so special like that.
Yeah, I'm going to start off by correcting the name a little bit. So we've changed the name to the Firefighter Challenge League, right? So heading a new direction a few years ago, and lining up with the other sports events that are similar to ours. They're all in a league format, and so that new name is the Firefighter Challenge League for anybody that's kind of looking us up on social media or on the internet. And I'll give Jake all the contacts to and links to websites and stuff for anybody that's interested in checking us out too.
Please and thank you.
Yeah, but for me, again, the fire service is all about family, and there's different lanes that you can go in the fire service, um, which just takes you down into a more closely knit family. Like you said with the instructors, I think we talked about this last time. I went to FDIC a couple years ago for the first time, and I had this idea of what I thought FDIC was, and then I went, and much like you were probably blown away at Worlds this year, I was blown away at that experience because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And instantly I was like, man, all of these instructors are so passionate and so driven in their lane for training and instruction. And then I have this other group of folks that is dialed in fitness and performance in the fire service and taking accountability for your mental toughness and your actions. Like, if I could figure out a way to make these two worlds meld, we would create some superhuman firefighters in the world. And to be honest with you, I think we're kind of already there, because I think there are some that cross lines, right? But the family aspect is huge to me. My family, I've been blessed enough that, when I go, I take the whole circus. Wife, two kids, my mom, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law has come. My dad came before he passed. My sister and nieces and nephews. I had some family friends down there. The support I get from, my family, my blood family, and friends is next level. And to me, it's not worth going if they don't come to. And it's neat because, to be honest with you, I was going to retire from competition a few years back, and my wife told me I couldn't because my son liked watching it too much. So I guess I'm stuck. And then ultimately, when you bring your family along, all the other competitors enjoy meeting your family, and they like them better than you. So they want the whole family to come, and they'll come say hi to them before they even come say hi to me. So it's special. You're right. We do root for each other. Unlike most sports, we share, trade secrets, because ultimately at the end of the day, the race is against yourself and the clock. You're trying to put yourself into a situation you haven't been in before and perform at a higher level than you've ever performed. And if you end up winning that competition, great. But I guess the mindset that has been broken down over the years of the challenge, because it didn't used to be that way. There used to be folks that would keep all of that training and all that technique stuff to themselves.
Yes.
And, my best friend, Brandon Cunningham, who's a 3-time individual world champ, 3 years in a row, back to back to back. I feel like he was the kind of the leader of breaking down that barrier, and would just share everything. And then other top performers came along with that. And that's where we're at now is people sharing ideas, people rooting for each other, because ultimately, if you win and you've shared everything, that's just even more special than if you, held some of that stuff in, and then knew that, hey, well, maybe if this person was doing that stuff too, they would have won. So I think it's great. We ultimately, nobody's getting paid to go out there and do it. A lot of us, spend the money out of our own pocket. So the fact that we can go out there, represent the fire service, represent our fire departments, represent our families and ourselves individually, and do that, knowing that everybody's on, say, that same equal playing field, and then you just go out and try to do the best you can, and the goal is to win. Like, you still want to win, otherwise you wouldn't be doing it, right? Yeah. But being happy for other people when they reach their goals, especially the new competitors. That's one of my favorite things, is watching the progression of the new competitor from the first time they did it, and it punched them right in the gut. and it was 10 times harder than they ever thought it was going to be. And then watching them year 2, year 3, year 4, and now they're running Lions Den times. They're running sub 90s. They're getting PRs. They're winning titles. They're setting world records. And just knowing that maybe I raced that kid 3 years ago, and and help them get a PR because they were racing someone that they maybe looked up to. That's a special feeling, as I get later in my competitive years.
Yes, when I was there, I was blown away by the atmosphere. I wasn't prepared for it. It reminded me a lot. My kids used to do swimming, so whenever you take them to a swim meet, you got your tents and your food because you're there all fucking day, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of that, and I was just going around seeing people, talking to people, watching what was going on, and I was just blown away by the family atmosphere that was there. I did not see anybody trying to cutthroat anybody. All the competitors seemed to talk to each other. And then, like with you, I got to brag on you. I know you don't like this, but I'm going to brag on you a little bit because it really blew me away. I feel like I know you pretty good. So, when at the very end of this, there's this line, they got to drag a dummy. And I think the feet have to cross this line of the dummy's feet for it to count, for the clock to stop, right?
Yes, sir.
So they have this big foam like pad that the firefighters can fall back into. And when you get there, I noticed all these firefighters are really tanked, right? So they have people that come and help take your gear off of you, your mask off of you, everything to help you. So when I was watching you and you did not fall backwards into that tank or that pillow, you just crossed the line. You did great. And then you just start kind of walking around. Nobody helped you take anything off. You just kind of, and then when you took your stuff off, you weren't even breathing that hard. You weren't grabbing your knees. You were just kind of like you are now. And I was like, hold up. The other guy who was a beast, and this is by no means a slam on him, but they were helping him take his mask off and stuff. And then he got up and he was fine. But I'm like, that's kind of weird. So I asked you and I said, hey man, actually you walked past me, go, hey man, I'll be back. I'll talk to you in a minute. I'm like, all right, cool. Because you were going to talk to your family. And I love that. I thought that's cool, man. He's going straight to his family. Although I feel like I should be considered a bit more than family, but that's fine. That's fine. That's a weakness you have. But when you came back, not only were you telling me everything about everybody doing it, but I had to ask him, I'm like, dude, you didn't even fall back. You didn't seem tired. And you said something to the effect of, I guarantee you I'm tired. It beat me, but I'm not going to let anybody see that. And then I was like, wow, that's impressive. But the thing that killed me is you go like that. You said, it's no different than if I get a victim to the door, my job's not over, right? It's not getting the victim out, like when you do training, you get them out the door and you're done. And I never thought about the correlation between, because I just thought it was something that firefighters did, but you take it to heart. You take everything you do has to tie back to how you can help your community. So you told me that, and I was just blown away. Again, I'm not trying to embarrass you. This is nothing you would ever tell anybody else, but I had to share it because I think it really points to your character. You're of the character. Well, I know you are. I've known you for several years now, that you care about your job and your community so much that you put your body through hell to make sure that you're delivering not only the best quality care, but you want to be an example for everybody else, showing them, hey, look, there's nothing special about me. If I can do it, you can do it. Come on along my journey. Come do it with me. Beat me. Be better than me. And I think you just have just more character than just about it. I have more character than you just because I'm awesome. I'm way more awesome. I've been married twice, so obviously I'm super smart. But no, I wanted to brag on you a little bit because that was one of those things when I left and I was calling my wife when I said, hey, I'm on my way home from Nashville. I was telling her about that. And I was just like in awe. So good on you, brother. But so this wasn't, it didn't, like, I thought it was all about you and your times. It's not. It was about you finding another way to become better in the fire service. Is that how it started out for you? Or did it start out like, hey, I want to try this, and then you learned to tie it in to your job later? Which was that?
I think for me personally, it started off in unison with my fire service career. So my first event was in 2006. And much like you said, I started off as a volunteer in 2001 for the same organization that I got hired full time in January of 2006. And at that time, I didn't realize that that volunteers could do it. I thought you had to be a paid professional to compete. And that's on me. Like, I didn't do the research or reach out, or I just assumed that's what you had to do. So for anybody out there that's in the fire service in any capacity, you are more than welcome. Please come out, right? Volunteers, instructors. We have a home for anybody. that, to be fair, it's even there's subcategories for other EMS professionals and law enforcement as well. So if you're in the community service world and you want to participate in this in some shape or fashion, we'll get you out there. Okay, so don't be like me and wait 5 years before you start. But long story short, I got started, and I told myself, as a competitive person, I love sports, love athletics. I'm like, why wouldn't I want to do something that mirrors the job that I'm trying to do that I love so much? So I also played rugby for 20 years and did that as well as the Fire Challenge, competed in CrossFit. And so, like, I'm going to be competitive till the day I die. I'm going to find something to do, whatever it is, darts, pool, you know what I mean? In Mexico, it's apparently drinking tequila sunrises, like stuff
Nice.
like that. Yeah. I'm going to find a way to win. Like, that's just
Right.
what we're out here to do, or try really hard. I'm a
Right.
really hard trier. But yeah, like tying that into the fire service, I was like, well, if I'm going to be training for a sport, why not pick the sport that's going to make me better at my job too? Because I want to accelerate that curve of learning. And then ultimately what it came back to is, like health, fitness, wellness, safety, all that, like all of those things. If you are in physically better shape and you're physically more capable of doing the fireground tasks that we are assigned, that takes so much stress off of your plate, because you don't have to think about, am I going to be able to force this door, or am I not strong enough? Am I going to be able to drag this hose line up to that third story window from an interior stairwell that's on fire, flowing on the way up if I need to? Or am I not in good enough condition to do that? And what happens when I get there and there's a victim that I have to remove? Am I going to be able to do that? Or am I going to have to call for more help? Like, for me, it is purely the fact that if I take the can I physically do that off of my plate before that event happens, all I have to do is think about what it is I'm going to go do, not how I'm going to go do it. That makes everything slow down. Heart rate stays slower. Breathing, I can control. I can focus on my breathing and not the fact that my muscles are on fire, because I've done that in a controlled environment in a gym or on the training ground time and time and time and time again. And I know I'm going to be okay because I've put myself in worse situations. Right. So hand in hand, for sure, the Firefighter Challenge, like, that made me a better firefighter because I wanted to be good at the Firefighter Challenge. So They kind of played off each other for me for my whole career. Still do. Now it's just, I'm getting old and I want to continue to beat as many young guys as I can. So, I mean, that's ultimately where it's at, because all the dudes that are my age and older than me that are out there are absolute just legends and freaks of nature. I mean, you watch these people go out there and compete, and then you're like, oh, who is it? And then they take their stuff off, and you can see when we're older, right? And we don't look like the young kids anymore. And you're like, how did that? Well, because they've been busting their ass for 25 years. That's how they just did that. And they don't want to give up because they're still on the job and they know that it's important. So that's kind of the motivation now, is you can't just ever get to a point in your career where you're like, hey, I've done enough. I'm just going to kind of settle in. To me, that's called retirement.
Yes.
Right? Like, as long as you're getting a paycheck from a fire department, or you're putting on gear and willing to go in voluntarily to something, you better be 100% all in physically. Otherwise, you're doing yourself a disservice, your family, and your community, right? You're putting yourself in danger by not putting the work in ahead of time.
That's something I've said a lot. And the thing that drives me nuts is people that they accept a paycheck for the job and they don't want to do the job. They find reasons that they think are perfectly fine. For example, older people. right? Older people, they're like, yeah, but he's older. So, I'm like, but the same expectation is put on him as is us, right? We're expected to go in burning buildings and pull people out. Yeah, but he's got a bad back. Or then you get people that, like, say, become sergeants. I'm not saying all sergeants, but I have seen it in quite a few where when I'll be doing training, they don't want to do anything. They're like, well, I'll never be doing this. I'm going to be driving this truck till the day I retire. I'm like, okay, what if there's an emergency call in? What if something, God forbid, happens to your crew and you have to go do something? It's easier to stay ready than it is to get ready.
Yes, sir.
And our job is so demanding physically and mentally, which I can't wait to talk to you about. Nobody gets a free ride. Nobody. And I think that is the key. And I saw every age group there killing themselves, man, and giving their 100%. And that's the thing. Yeah. Is your 100% going to slow down? Absolutely. But an example would be, I like to run. I like to do running. My knees no longer let me run at all. I've done everything but knee replacements. So I had a couple things I could decide, either not do it or keep doing it until they fall out and I can never do anything. So I decided, well, I'll just start swimming. It's demanding. It helps me breathe better. So I used to do it years and years ago. It was so good for wearing an air pack, learning to control your breathing like that, because you do it instinctively when you learn to swim. But that was my new 100%. That was my new marker, right? Yeah. And I think as we get older, we like to use our age or an injury as an excuse. If you can't do the job, then don't do the job. Quit. Let somebody else come up. But there's a battalion chief that I have worked with that had such a bad injury. He was told that, he cannot wear an air pack anymore. Brother, that's horrible. I hate that for you, but move on. Don't hold on to the job. He's been there he's still there. He's been there for years after that. What if somebody needs him? Right. But he's thinking about his pension, his retirement, and that's fine. But you can do that and serve the fire department a million different ways.
Yep.
Being in a position that's taking up a spot for somebody that might be needed, no bueno, man. That's where the ego gets involved. We were talking about the mental toughness. Anybody that's been a firefighter knows that you break your own limits constantly in the fire department. When you go to the academy, you think you're tired, and then you don't get time off for certain things, so you get right back in it. When you're on the fire ground, you could be exhausted, and all of a sudden they're like, okay, you need to go do this. And you can't say, man, I'm really tired. That's just not something in the fire service. So you find your limits all the time. You're like, oh shit, I thought I could do this, but now I can do that. When I saw all those excellent athletes doing that, I'm like, this is really more about mental toughness than physical toughness. So how do you feel about the mental aspect of the fire service and say through the combat challenge or the combat league? Where does mental toughness fit in for you?
Yeah, I think for me, like that's what it's all about. I mean, obviously, everybody is gifted physically in a different fashion through genetics and whatever creator gave you, right? And at the end of the day, for me, the one thing that you can always control is your mental capacity and what you choose to believe or not believe or whatever, right? So as someone who was always a smaller individual growing up, always undersized for the things that I was athletically, say, inclined to be doing or wanting to do. I always felt like I had to work harder to make the coaches and make the people believe that I earned that spot. And the way that you got to do that is you got to believe that your body can do way more than your mind will ever let it do. Like your brain will quit before your body will quit. And yeah, some people could argue with me that, well, look, no, I could not pick that barbell up one more time. And yes, you can get to physical exhaustion. I'm not saying that, right? But what I'm saying is that if you can train your brain, which you can by repetition, to push past those limits, you're going to make those gains. And again, like 1% better every day, right? And that kind of ties into your like, hey, set your new new standard, new 100% for whatever age you are, whatever injury you're coming back from. I had back surgery, a major back surgery in 2014. And, like that was the first time that I had to switch my mindset to, okay, don't think about what you could do before the back surgery. Think about what you could do yesterday and try to beat that. And to be quite honest with you, like that was the recovery ended up being fun for me because I was able to set a new PR almost every day. And prior to that, I hadn't set a PR in years, right? So you can, again, no matter what situation you're in, and let's take this, battalion chief or someone that has unfortunately gone down the path of settling in and kind of cashing out of what their physical responsibility is.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, man. It's okay, right? You're not a bad firefighter. You're not a bad city employee, but let's stop the train right here and let's start getting 1% better every day and see that to the end of your career. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You don't have to, because it's been 3 years since you've done a workout, doesn't mean that you can't do one today. Right? Even if it means walking on the treadmill for 10 minutes. Like start somewhere and then string 2 days together, string a week together, string 10 weeks together, and now you got a habit. And now you got a new 1% better, and you'll look back and be like, okay, all right, now I'm feeling like I'm making progress. It's not the end of the world. I think quite too often we have people that settle back into that role, and then they just get a little bit intimidated or feel like I'll never get back to what I once was. Well, you're absolutely right. You won't if you don't start, right? That's the first thing. And two, you also have to think about how many years it took you to get to the point you're at now. And so you're not going to see results in a week or 2 weeks. You've been sitting on your butt for 3 years. It's going to take, probably more than 3 years to get back to what you were before. But that's okay too. Enjoy it. Enjoy the process. And I know I'm kind of hopping all over the place a little bit.
No, you're fine.
But part of that mental struggle that you're going to have within yourself, like you'll hear the people saying, "Oh, I just don't feel like working out today. I don't feel like doing whatever today." You got to have the mental capacity to force yourself and get in there, right? Because consistency is what is going to breed the progress. Okay.
Yes.
You got to have the commitment to get started, and you got to have the consistency to see the end results. Right. And once you get in there, it really doesn't matter what you do as long as you're in there and you're trying to get better. And that's what's going to allow your brain to feel those positive thoughts, start to enjoy what it is that you're doing. So like for me, I think we've talked about this before. I pick competitive outlets, CrossFit being one of them. I enjoy CrossFit style programming where I get to do some traditional barbell lifting, some Olympic lifting, some gymnastics, some endurance stuff, and then I get to mash all that together and do some high intensity stuff too. To me, it's a great example of what we do in the fire service. You do a little bit of everything. Sometimes you need to go wide open for 2 minutes. Yep. And it's over. And sometimes you need to do something for 60 minutes straight at a constant effort. So you got to train for both of those things. And over the course of, my 30 years, I've learned that, hey, that's what I enjoy doing. If you enjoy swimming, then go swim and make that your thing. Because guess what? You can do the same thing. You could go out and do a 50 or 100 meter sprint. And then the next day you could go out and swim 1,000 meters at a slower, more consistent pace and get the same result as what I'm doing in the gym, So you gotta enjoy the process. Otherwise you're not going to be able to find the consistency you need to stay mentally engaged. Right? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I tell you what we're going to do, though. We're going to wrap up part 1, and then next week's going to be part 2, and we're going to pick right up from this spot because I got something I'd like to say about it. Okay. So, Brother Shane, thank you for being on. Look forward to seeing you next week on 3 Point Firefighter.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to 3-Point Firefighter. This is part 2 with Shane Farmer from Big Sky. We've been talking about the mental toughness of the fire service, and I love what Shane had said. Go back and listen to part 1, but it's you got to set these goals. You got to set the goals, and you got to look for your success where it is. Like, you can have unrealistic expectations will make you quit exercising quicker than anything. If you think you're going to go into a gym and after spending 2 hours bench pressing that you're going to walk out with a perfect chest, it's not that way. The good news is when you walk out from the very first time you go into a gym, regardless of what you do, you're going to leave feeling great, right? You're going to leave feeling great. You may not have the physical changes you want yet, but mentally you will feel fucking awesome. And I've noticed whenever I go to the gym, no matter what I do, whether it's a little because of an injury or a lot because it's getting close to fucking swimsuit season, I always have that same feeling in my head where I'm like, I'm so glad I did this. I'm so glad I keep doing this. But you don't have to go in and have your own personal trainer. You don't have to go in and say, okay, I'm going to start, warm up with 225 on the bench. That's not realistic. Go in, like Shane said, and maybe it's just I'm going to go in and do 10 minutes on the treadmill. You don't have to run. You can just walk 10 minutes, watch a video, watch whatever you want. You'll be surprised if you just do 10 minutes. I'll be real surprised, because if you've gone that far to where you've committed, you've gone to a gym, you're on a treadmill, as soon as you start realizing how easy it is to get a little bit better every day to what you said earlier, 1% every day, you're going to walk 10, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20. And before you leave, you might go, I might go over there and try that machine. The next day, you're going to be sore, but that is telling you that you did something that you normally don't do. You'll go back the next day and the next day. Before you know it, man, you're needing spotters, and you're really concentrating on your form. You're getting, what muscle groups push, pull, blah, blah, blah. It'll happen. And there's no shame in being that guy that's been lazy for a lot of your career, and now you want to get healthy. Shame on the brothers and sisters that make fun of you, right? Absolutely. But, overcome that, because, at the end of the day, you want to enjoy your retirement. You don't want to be sick and weak when you retire. Retirement isn't just the step before you die. Retirement, in my opinion, now that I'm retired, is when you get to have your life exactly the way you want it. You've worked all these years to do that. Mental toughness is a big part of it. When you get new recruits at Big Sky, what is it you tell them? How do you prepare them? Because physically, I mean, we're not really looking for, huge Arnold Schwarzeneggers from the 80s, right? You're looking for somebody that can do the job up here. So how do you prepare your new people for mental toughness over physical toughness?
Yeah. So, again, very blessed to have been part of the cadre for the Gallatin Valley Fire Academy from its infancy, along with 2 other organizations. So there's a handful of us that, for lack of better terms, built this thing from the ground up. Very blessed to have been part of that team. Amazing individuals that have instilled an amazing culture in that academy. And don't get me wrong, like even that cadre is anywhere from a guy in his mid-30s to myself who's almost 50, right? So we got a wide range of experienced folks that also come with some different generational knowledge or characteristics, right? So I think the biggest thing is knowing that the new folks that we're hiring that are coming into the fire service, right? They're from a different generation than the majority of the instructors that are going to be instructing them. So you have to know what their needs are and how to get through to them, right? And the biggest piece of that is they do not, and I'll say this, they do not respond to the militaristic drill sergeant academies that most of us went through and responded to very well, right? Because that's how we were brought up. Yes. Like stern parents, do this, get a job, buy a house, get married, right? That's that's not these kids' program, folks. I'm here to tell you, it's not at all. And they're not gonna respect a single one of you that sits there and yells at them and tells them to do push-ups, and you look like you can't even get yourself out of bed in the morning. I can promise you that, right? I've seen it. So how you build mental toughness in that generation is by showing them that you are willing to do the work that you're going to ask them to do right alongside them. And
Yes.
I've said this my entire career. I will never ask someone to do something that I haven't already done or that I won't do right alongside you. And so our academy days start off with 1 hour of PT every morning, right? So it's a warm up that is led by the academy, that we give them the warm up, but they lead it. And then we go into the gym, and there's a pre-programmed workout for every day. And it is the expectation that the instructors that are going to be teaching do the workout with the cadets. And so when those cadets see the instructors that are going to be on the drill ground with them all day, busting their ass in the gym and hopefully beating most of them to show them that, oh shit, I better step my game up. I mean, here you got 50-year-old guy beating me at a freaking gym workout. Like, what did I get myself into? Right? So setting that standard at the very first experience they have in the fire service is paramount. And then over your academy, whatever that looks like, for us, it's 10, 12 weeks. Over the length of that academy, they do nothing but trust and believe that what you're asking them to do, what you're showing them to do, is gold, because they have seen you blood, sweat, and tears in the gym with them every morning. So then that transfers over to, if he's showing me to throw a ladder this way, that must be the right way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? As opposed to the guy that stands in the back with his cup of coffee and just says, go over and do that stuff. Right? Like, this generation isn't buying into that, man. That's how you instill the mental toughness into those folks. And then when you see them starting to drag back, or not push themselves as much as you would like, you know what happens? The instructors don't have to get them. The top performers of the academy circle back, grab them, because that group of folks have seen, it's a trickle-down effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
They see the cadre or the instructing leaders setting the example. And then the high performers of the academy are like, oh, so the instructors are helping us, so I guess I should help this person come along. And then you get informal leaders within your academy that bring, the people that are maybe struggling or on a subject or maybe with their workouts, help bring them up to the standard that we've set. So by graduation day, the separation of that academy is now a lot closer, right?
Right.
The top performers and the bottom dwellers at the beginning, kind of that gap shortens up, because the top performers bring the bottom up to them, not the other way around.
Exactly. And also, it does another thing. It doesn't happen very often. Matter of fact, I can't say I've seen it more than a handful of times in 30 years. But in academies, every now and then, there'll be somebody that's more worried about how they look, and they don't help anybody. And you can spot those people, and that tells you right away what's their character right now.
Yeah.
And
we address that. Yeah, so we address that with ours right away, because you can see it. You can see it right away, and we do weekly evaluations. And at the end of that week 1 evaluation, which you see, we'll let that student know, like, here's the deal. You're the top performer in this class right now. What I need out of you is not worrying about your performance, but helping others come up to your performance. Okay. Right. You're not going to have a problem with this academy. I know this because I know what's coming the next 10 weeks. You're going to be fine. Your goal is to make sure everybody else comes up to where you're at. And you put that little bit of extra pressure on those folks right off the bat. And those end up being, the special ones, right? Because they learn that this is a team sport. It is not Absolutely. An individual sport, right? Team sport. And then one thought to tie back into the mental toughness of our young cadets at Academy. The rest of the cadre decided that our first day we set expectations, and then we put them through a series of tests kind of to to break that mental barrier and have them earn their academy flag that they will carry with them for the remainder of the academy. Mm-hmm. And that the ending test is each one of our cadets will go through the Firefighter Challenge. And and we show them what it looks like, give them minimal technique tips, and then one at a time, we put them through it, and the rest of them support and reset the course. And the confidence so far in 6 academies, roughly 50 individuals, we yet, men and women, all shapes and sizes, we yet to have a single person fail that on their first attempt. Now, I'll preface this. They're in full gear, no air tank, not on air. Mm-hmm. We just want them to feel the physical burden of that task, of those tasks pulled together, right? Mm-hmm. But the mental toughness that has come through that from people who have struggled a little bit, but persevered and had their peers cheer them on and get them through whatever evolution they were struggling with. And then the win at the end of it, right? Like that's irreplaceable. You can't manufacture that anywhere else. And those groups that do that, like that class, will then end up being a high performing class because of, say, the struggle that happened at the beginning. And then they know they got through it. And then anything to come, they're like, okay, we can get through this, right? So that's how we tie a physical demand into the mental aspect, mental toughness that's going to be needed to get them through those tough weeks. Like hose pulls, our search week, and our safety and survival weeks. Those 3 weeks are really, really, really physically demanding. And it takes effort to stay mentally engaged. So they learn on day one what it's going to be like.
Right. Letting them teach themselves that fact, learn that fact on their own is amazing. One of the things that I did for the second to last group I had before I retired, and I've talked about her before on here. Her name's Maddie, and she's just a beast. She's a beast of a firefighter. So one of the things I did is I was in at the Rock in FDNY, and I want to say it was a Thursday, and every Thursday they had this thing where you would move a flowing 2.5. They had these markers, and you would I want to say it was like 150 feet. So it was a long distance, but they had to move it as a team from each side and back, flowing water. And that's tough. That is tough to do. It's a technique thing. It's a mental thing. And so I said, that's a great idea. I'm going to bring that to the recruits. So I started doing it. And the only 2 rules I had was you cannot stop and you cannot stop flowing water. You can't stop moving and you can't stop flowing water. That's the only 2 rules I had. And I did that on purpose because I thought, let's see where they go with this. How do they, because firemen automatically find loopholes, right?
Oh, instantly.
So everybody in that group did really, really good. Maddie, like I said, she played college softball, great shape, just she's got the right headspace for it. So she's going back and forth, and it's killing everybody. It's killing everybody. So on her last go, of course, and I'm kind of yelling at him a little bit, not yelling like screaming, but like talking loudly and telling him there's no quit in the fire service. You can't say I'm tired, I can't go get that baby, whatever. So I'm trying to motivate him. She didn't need any motivation, but she was so tired, physically done. Her body was done. That what she did was she kind of curled in almost a moving fetal position and brought the bail down to about half, and she was barely moving. She never stopped. And she stopped the water flow enough to where she could manage it easier to finish her task. And it blew me away because you could look at her face and her body language. She was done. Dude, she was fucking done. She was done 10 feet ago, but she never gave up. She never stopped. And when she crossed that line, barely moving, and everybody's cheering her on, I was like, she gets it. Sometimes you just don't get it for several years in the fire service. You really don't. She got it. Either she already had it, or I just noticed it at that moment, or she got it in that moment. And it was all mental. It was all mental that got her the rest of that 50 feet. Yep. It was amazing. It was amazing.
It's a big thing that has helped me throughout my, physical journey over my career in adult life is you cannot quit. Like, and I'm telling you right now, we'll get into this, I'm sure, at some point here, with longevity in the fire service.
Yes.
But like for me personally, there's not a single workout that I have done, whether it's a 30-second sprint or a 24-hour workout, where I have not at least half a dozen times in that session thought about quitting what I was doing. Mm-hmm. So that means that you're pushing yourself, right? If you're pushing yourself to the point where you're thinking about quitting, you're in the right space. That's where you need to be.
Yeah.
The key is you can't quit, right? How that looks is some days you'll be the killer and you'll be like, fuck this, I'm going to kill this workout and beat it and set a PR or beat all those other people and cross the finish line and have the adrenaline like you didn't do anything and go, oh, I got this. That's great. Some days you're going to maybe sit down, take an extra breath, go back, do the next round, get a drink of water, go back, do the next round, but you didn't quit. Right? So like some days you're going to be a survivor and some days you're going to be a killer, right? And it's okay to have both of those days as long as you don't quit. Because if you start quitting in the gym or in training in a controlled environment, you're teaching yourself how to quit. You're creating that habit and saying it's okay. And I'm here to tell you, it is not fucking okay.
No.
Like, do not quit. Even if it means you walked out of the gym and you go back 2 hours later and finish the 5th round that you were supposed to finish earlier, that's a win. Okay. You still won. You know what I mean? Like, but let that, because the only one that knows if you quit something is you. Right. So for me personally,
you feel like everybody knows though, right? You feel like everybody knows.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, they're looking at me different. No, bro, that's your internal telling yourself that you need to get back in there and finish your shit.
Exactly.
Yeah, like 100%. So don't quit. For the trick I have for me is if I'm going to do something, I write it on the whiteboard in the gym. And if it's written down on the whiteboard, it means I have to do it.
Right.
Right. Now I get it, right? Like you're in the gym at work, call comes in, you get toned out, you go to the call, you come back. It's supper time, like you're going to not have supper with the crew so you can go finish that one round that you need to get. Maybe not, but like, yeah, are there extenuating circumstances? Yeah, but that's a justifiable, like you didn't quit. Your job, your primary objective of being at work got in the way, right? But at least you got in there and did it and attempted to do it, okay? I'm talking about don't quit because your mind is saying, this hurts, I'm tired, I don't want to. Mm-hmm. That's the thing that you can't allow in there. That's the mental toughness you need to make it 30 years, and then to more importantly, make it 30 years past your retirement, right? Because our goal as firemen is to bankrupt the pension system. And by that, I mean live long enough that they have to pay you so much that they run out of money.
They call you every now and then. How you feeling? You got a chest pain or anything? No, I'm good, bro. God damn it,
right? Yeah, like that's the goal. Not to retire at 55 and then die at 56, right? That's a net lose for everybody.
Yes, it is.
So
it is. It's funny you should say that because when I retired, I had a pretty significant health scare. Matter of fact, when I found out, I called a friend of ours, Seth. And I was like, because I thought he went through this, and he didn't. He went through something totally different that was terrible. Don't get me wrong, but he turned me on to the right people to talk to. And I had just retired, and I'm like looking at a life sentence. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified because I have done what I thought it was everything to prepare myself for that moment, because we get cancer as firefighters. We have heart attacks as firefighters. So I got to that point. And after several months of doctors and a biopsy and everything, I'm good. But it was horrible to think that I was getting that far. I finally got to be retired and something medical was going to take me out of the game very soon. It was a terrible feeling. And unfortunately, there's some brothers and sisters out there that do that, that have that issue. But every time I go to a gym and I see, first off, in the beginning of the year, you always see brand new faces for 2 weeks and then you never see them again. The ones that get me are the old people. Now I'm old, don't get me wrong, but I'm very sexy. So it balances out a little bit. So, but you'll see really old people knowing nothing about the gym in their late 60s, 70s, trying to do stuff because they've had an incident and a doctor said, you've got to start doing this. And you know them because they're wearing jeans and like button down t-shirts on the treadmill and boots because their doctor says you have to go in. So my point in all this is that we are always going to end up in the gym. Yep. It's like we can end up there as a precaution or end up there as a result of something. Yep. And so why not get started now? You get paid to exercise. Chances are your fire department has a gym and you need to get in there, push your limits. Here's where I overdid it. And for me, I was doing it 6 days a week in a row. And like you, if I have a pattern or something, or I say I'm going to do something, I have to do it. You can't quit, right? You just can't. So when I was doing 6 weeks in a row or 6 days in a row for years and years and years, now, like I said, my knees finally, there's nothing I can do about that. I wish I had taken more time off, but it feels so good to be, once you're in that flow state of the gym, you know, you're going every day. You got your drink made every morning. You know, you're going to be there till 11 o'clock. You know, I rate my workouts from A+, which I don't think I've ever had an A+, down to a B-. Anything past a B-, I'm mad. Right. Yeah. And I've had them. I've had plenty of them. Right. You go in there and, you know, you kind of don't go that angle on the treadmill as much, or you don't put as much weight, or, you know, you don't warm up. You just jump into it so you can hurry up. I've had those days, but you've got to keep moving through. And I think, you know, you're in the right mindset when you miss a workout for whatever reason and you hate it. You're mad at yourself. Yeah. And you're like, I can't wait till tomorrow because I'll show them. Yep. You know, that's when you're in that good state. And you don't have to be, if you look at me, I'm not a big dude. I am not a bodybuilder. I am not, none of that. But I tell you what, when I get my autopsy, that guy's going to go, holy shit, his innards look good. That's my only goal. I want the coroner to go, how many am? Look at his lungs, man. They're great.
Never would have thought that.
Yeah, his outside looks like hell.
Yeah.
I saw a guy in the gym one time, and he always had these big old headphones, and he just would talk to himself and everything. And we went for weights at the same time, and he said, we just started talking, and he goes, with my shirt on, I'm a sexy motherfucker. Like, I get that. That. And he looked huge, but I totally got what he was saying. But so you mentioned longevity earlier, all this mental toughness and training your body to know that there is no limit. There is no finish line, right? Which, again, I go back to what we said in part one. It blew me away. I don't know that. I hope you understand how much it affected me. Like, your life affected my life at that moment. That's where they intersected. When you said that, when you said, I'm like, dude, you think he's tired? Yeah, but, you know, if I got to get that victim all the way house, I got to make sure I get him to EMS and everything. I was like, he's living that life. He's all about it. Blew me away. And it made me set some new goals for myself. You know, now we're looking at longevity. When it comes to the longevity of the fire service, are you talking about day one to the very last day you're at the firehouse? And if so, how would you prepare young Shane Farmer if you could go back and say, hey, Shane, this is what you need to start doing today? What would that advice be to get that longevity?
Yeah, and I'll even take it a step further. It starts at day one that you want to enter this profession, because you better show up to the CPAT or whatever physical ability test that you got to do. You better show up to that thing ready to win, because we just did our testing consortium here in Montana recently, which is the CPAT. And I can't tell you how many people showed up, and even talking starting, were wondering if they were even going to make it off the stair mill. And I'm like, what are you doing here? Like, if you haven't prepared yourself, this is an interview that you just walked into. This is an interview for yourself to know if you can physically do this job, as well as for everybody else that's here watching you to see how easily you navigate this or not, right? So you better prepare yourself from day one. And there's so many resources and so many people out in the world that are wanting to help anyone that wants to get into this profession. So
Oh yeah.
don't use that as an excuse. If you're out here listening and you want to enter the fire service, find somebody that wants to help you, and it won't be hard, and listen to their advice, right? So show up to the test ready to enter this profession physically. So you start there. And then it doesn't end when you retire. You better create the habits and keep them through retirement, right? Yeah, you can lower your intensity and maybe change some of the things you're doing because you're not going to be throwing an air pack on anymore, right? You're not going to be forcing a door or dragging a dummy anymore. But you better keep those healthy habits into retirement to lengthen that period too. That's the longevity we're talking about. We're not just talking about your 20 or 30-year career. We're talking about hopefully your 60-year plus span as an adult. Let's go there, right? That's the longevity that we're talking about. And so that's how you can wrap your brain around that and know that you're not playing anything here in the short term. You're playing the long game.
Yes.
So it's hey, we used this earlier. You said make goals, right? Yes, goals, great. But one thing you can do with goals is change them, especially if you feel like you're not going to obtain it because you either are feeling a little mentally weak and you're like, oh, I'm going to make it easier for myself, or you might be someone like myself that sets goals that sometimes could be unattainable. Again, my best friend, one of the things that he says all the time is don't make goals, make decisions. And I love that, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't hope that I can go do something. I am going to go do something, right? And that's the difference, right? Because if you make a decision, it's most likely going to be a realistic accomplishment, right? Like, if you say like, hey, I hope to have 100 million, or my goal is to have $100 million someday, that's probably unrealistic for most of us, right? But if your goal is or if your decision is, hey, I'm gonna save $20,000 in the bank this year, that's a decision. You can do that, right?
Right.
Because you're gonna make a decision more realistic, and then you're gonna stack up those wins, right? That's how you get mentally tough. Continue to stack up wins. That's gonna build that confidence that, hey, what you're doing, the process that you're engaged in, you're going to enjoy it because you're getting more wins than losses, right?
Right.
We're still going to get losses, right? And that's actually the losses, in my opinion, help build character and help elevate you to the next level, because that's when we learn the most is from those losses. And that's okay, right? But be mindful when you're setting those goals that you could get yourself heading in one of two directions that aren't always the best if you're not a very experienced goal setter for yourself, right? So try wrapping your head around, hey, making a decision to do something, do it, stack that win, make the next decision, stack that win. And maybe it is for those people that are trying to get back engaged in the gym. Hey, I'm going to do 10 minutes in the gym on the treadmill 5 days a week for 5 weeks. That's a decision, right? To me, that's way more obtainable than, hey, I'm going to go 3 times a week for an hour, right? Like, one day pops off and you're like, oh, I can't get it done. I mean, nobody has an excuse to not do something for 10 minutes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's kind of part one to say longevity for me is understanding how to keep yourself in the game, which is by making decisions that you're going to hold yourself accountable to, right? Because nobody else is holding you accountable, just you.
And that's the biggest governing body of that committee, right? Is yourself. And when you let yourself down, I think that's more powerful for the most part, than letting other people down. And I would add something to it for me that really helped me is having rewards for myself for getting to a certain place, right? The big one for me was, I remember when I first started running, I wanted to run the equivalent of 5K on my own, not a 5K run, but that was my goal. And I'll never forget the day it happened. It was in the summertime, and I was running around downtown New Albany, and I hit the 5K mark because I mapped it out perfectly. And I felt like I just started running. So I said, okay, I'm going to set a new one. I'm going to go up to this. It was 8th Street, I think. I'm going to go up to 8th Street and then come back, and that'll be good. I ended up doing another mile or two, right? Yeah. And I'm like, holy shit. So my big reward was going out somewhere and having a real nice dinner with my wife, having, beer if I wanted it, or steak, whatever I wanted. Yeah. So then I started, that was kind of my motivator. Maybe it was like going on a trip. Like before I went on a trip, I was like, okay, that's going to be my reward. So what am I going to do to earn that trip, to Florida? Yeah. Well, okay, I want to be able to do this, this, and this before I go. Yep. And, that keeps me going.
See, you're making decisions,
yep,
not goals, without even knowing it, right? Because you got the reward.
Yeah, because I never thought like, I hope I make it. I was like, no, I have to do this.
I'm going to do it because I want to go to Florida.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Make a decision without even knowing, right?
Yeah, make decisions, not goals, man. Goals give you a way out. Decisions are yours. I love that. That's good.
And like for me, like enjoying the process is paramount, especially if you're in the competitive world. And then because the competition is the reward, right? Like that's how my brain processes that. Like if I did not like training for the Firefighter Challenge, like I wouldn't perform well. Like I enjoy the process and the struggle, the daily grind, like sadly and sickly or sickly, like right. I enjoy the process probably more than the competition. Like the competition, I enjoy the people and seeing them, right? But like, and doing it, yes. I'm not saying I don't enjoy it, but like I enjoy the process more because I'm in it, 99% of the time, and the competition is just 1%. And if you end up doing good and winning a world title and sharing that joy with teammates or a partner or individual, whatever it might be, like, yeah, that's the ultimate, cherry on top of the sundae. But at the end of the day, I come home from Worlds and I'm back at the process again because that's the part that I really enjoy. And I know that's how you stay engaged in the longevity piece that's going to keep you going for your whole career, right? Because, if, for example, you took that trip to, you earned your trip to Florida because you made decisions and you accomplished that. And then you go to Florida and now what, right? Like you come back home and you do it all over again because you want to go back to Florida, right? Like, yeah, or Mexico or wherever, right? So again, you're like, okay, what's my new process? What's my new goals? Like, so you enjoy it too, again, to get to the reward piece, right? One could say it's little games we play. We trick ourselves into these different aspects, but ultimately, if you find a way to love the process, give yourself the rewards, whatever that might be, and then continue that positive cycle, you're going to be in a good space, one more thing I would love to touch on as far as the mental aspect of things, especially longevity and keeping you engaged, is, again, I mentioned this, you got to kind of find a way to trick yourself, AKA have motivators. And you have to find a way to like wash all of those doubtful thoughts or the doubtful people like out of your life. For me, a huge motivator, and this might sound counterintuitive, a huge motivator is fear and failure. Those two things motivate me every day. And it's kind of the fear of failing my family, failing my community, failing that person that expects me to be able to go help them when they need me to go help them, right? Like I told myself when I entered this profession that if I had to look in the mirror because I could not physically go help somebody that needed help, I don't know if I would be able to live with that. So from that moment on, I'm like, I'm taking that off the table, right?
Right.
We've all failed on the job. We've
Sure.
all, like, nobody's batting 1,000 on saves. Okay. Right.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. And so we are going to have to live with some stuff, some failures. But what I can promise you is that those failures weren't because I didn't perform physically, right? They were due to other circumstances, one would say,
Yes.
right? Like,
Right.
that person wasn't going to make it no matter what we did, right? But ultimately, if you can take the physical component or the lack thereof off of your plate, that's going to help with the mental side of things and coping and dealing with some of those unfortunate experiences that we're going to encounter, right? And
Right.
that ties into the mental health aspect of it too. More physically active, strong, mentally tough person is going to deal with the mental stress of the job a lot better, right? Because you don't have the added stress of being able or being unable to physically perform. So failure, fear motivate me on a daily basis because, again, I want to take that off the plate. When that call for service comes in, where we got to go save 18 babies and 22 adults from the 5th story of the hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I got you, right? And
Right.
my crew, they got you too, because we work out together and they know what the expectation is, right? So don't worry.
Absolutely.
Don't worry. We're running laps and we'll get you all, I promise. Okay? You got to have that mindset. You got to have that mindset. And that will drive you through those tough times in a workout where you want to quit. Right? So
Yeah, you got to tie it to, just like you did with the the combat league. When I asked you that question, you said, yeah, but that's, you tied it to your job really well. You didn't say, hey, I was tired from pulling this pretend dummy. You said, hey, if that was a real person, I'd have to give him to, ambulance.
Yeah.
I'd have to do more. And I love that. And that's exactly what it is. And, it's okay to be done with something physically, mentally done. There's times I've been there. Right. And you earn that, but to tap out early, that's some bullshit. Right. I mean, and don't give yourself excuses like, well, I'm older, I'm heavier, or my knees hurt, or blah, blah, blah. You've heard me talk about my knees. I didn't stop. I shifted, right? And you've got to not give yourself those outs. You have to understand, and I get pushback for this. I say this all the time, and I almost always get an email or a text or something on Facebook saying, hey man, I disagree. I think if you ask most firefighters, especially officers, like if I was to come up to a captain farmer and go, hey man, what's your number one concern? You'd be surprised how many people say my crew's number one. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. I think the community is number one. Like, you come to work every day thinking about your community. How can I take care of my community? Then you worry about your crew. And that's where people get mad. Oh, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, hear me out. I'm trying to make a point. If you take care of the community by doing pre-plans, by training, by exercising, then your crew's automatically taken care of. They're going to be fine. But it's the people that say, I work with quite a few people. They're like, I'll do anything for my crew, and they physically can't do the job. They never exercise. They never wear their air packs and overhaul. Never. Right. But they do anything for their guys. And I just I can't, and I'm very glad I can't understand them, because, our job is just that. Our job isn't just to go hang out at the firehouse. It's fun. Our job isn't, just to ride fire engines and, make the wee-woo noise. It's a blast. But at the end of the day, we're here on this earth to put our life in front of others if needed. And if you're not mentally and physically prepared, then that'll happen way sooner than later. And if you are lucky enough to dodge a few bullets out of just sheer luck, coincidence, whatever you want to call it, and you get to retirement, then what? Is that when you're going to start working out? No, you're not going to turn, 55, 60 and all of a sudden be a beast in the gym. You're not. You might play catch up for the rest of your life to get to where you should have been 30 years ago. Our job's important. Our job's not about us. and we got to get out of our own way, and we got to do everything we can every single day. And to your point, your motivating factors is your family. You want to do everything you can for your family, and you want to be around to where I'm sure your kids and their kids are sick and tired of having Papaw Shane around, because all he talks about is firefighting shit.
Oh.
Hey, you're frozen up on me, buddy. There you are.
I say you're frozen, but I just got your voice back.
There it is. Oh, I had a good speech. I did good.
Dude, I was in on it. I'm all like, that was the best kind of speech from you, is the one that I didn't have to listen to.
Ass bag.
Like, I look forward to hearing it, but like, I loved where you were headed. And you're 100% right. And I'm going to use our good friend Mitch, another captain here at Big Sky, and his perspective, and it's going to hopefully save you from getting some of those emails, right?
Yeah. Because
everybody's right who comes first. But the reality of the situation is, if we put, here's what Mitch says. He's like, okay, when the Chiefs go, what are you going to do today? He's like, we're going to provide top level customer service to our community, our crews, and ourselves. And what that means is we're going to make sure that we come to work well rested. We're going to make sure that we're hydrated and we get some fuel in our system, meaning food. We're going to get a really good workout in, because we need to be physically fit for this job. We're going to do some training, high-level training, different areas of our job. Again, we're going to sit down, have a community lunch. We're going to talk about people's families, what they got going on in life. I'm going to check in and make sure everybody's doing good with their mentals. And then in the afternoon, we're going to either do some more training, or we're going to find what the crew needs to get their tasks or their collateral duties done, all while responding as our number one priority, responding to the calls for service that we get toned out to, right? All that being said, that's checking all the boxes, right? We're putting ourselves first, we're putting our crew first, and we're putting our community first. If we wrap our head around the fact that I'm here to provide top-level customer service to the community that pays my bills, right? So I had a good speech too, and you're frozen up again. So hopefully you still have this on recording.
Today's podcast was sponsored by Fire Facilities, designers and manufacturers of realistic, built-to-last training structures and mobile units for 35 years. Make training count. Visit firefacilities.com for more information.